Coming up on Kentucky Outlook, who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Well, we're going to talk today about an upcoming opportunity for the intellectually curious to get that fix. It's something called lifelong learning. Member-driven course offerings may be something like great decision-making, or you might have a lunchtime seminar on photography. Well, this is not your grandmother's continuing education. Lifelong learning coming up next on Kentucky Outlook. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm your host, Barbara Deeb. And today we are talking about something called lifelong learning. Joining us in the studio, we have three individuals who have worked tirelessly on this effort for the area. We're going to tell you more about it. Dr. Frank Kirsting joins us. Thank you so much. Dr. Cindy Ehresman joins us, and Ed Tivol joins us. Linda Vitale was going to join us. She's a part of this, but we'll get her on a future show once everything gets going. So let's talk a little bit about, I said this is not your grandmother's continuing education because in essence this kind of is continuing education but sort of rebranded. Is that a good way to call it?
It is. In fact, my mother-in-law who's 92 years old is so excited about this. He's actually going around to the Greens telling all her friends about the Society for Lifelong Learning. So maybe it is your grandmother's way of continuing education.
Depends on how you look at it. But so let's take it back. Let's sort of trace the genesis. Lifelong learning is nothing new. And they say if you want to stay fresh, if you want to stay relevant, continue to learn, never stop learning. And so as far as the initiative nationwide, this is not new?
Oh, no. No, there's more than 500 of these lifelong learning institutes around our country and many overseas. They are usually affiliated with a university, and we have two in the area, but the closest are Lexington and Vanderbilt. So we're excited about the chance to bring one here to South Central Kentucky.
To South Central Kentucky. Mm-hmm. When you talk about the two in the Commonwealth, there's one at the University of Kentucky. Oh no, and the other one is Vanderbilt in Nashville. Okay,
right. Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that there are 500 of these in the country speaks to the success and the relevance of something like this. So let's talk about the initiative here in South Central Kentucky. How did this come to be, Ed?
This came about by recognizing a need to add to some of the wonderful resources that we have here. I like to think of Bowling Green as having a great tapestry, and this is another great thread in that tapestry that gives an opportunity for people of a certain age who want to really stretch their minds and imaginations and do what they've always wanted to do. And the key question is, what have I always wanted to learn? And
that's
this is
probably
the
hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What have I always wanted to learn? So the opportunity to present in a very non-threatening, very comfortable environment and affiliated with a great university came about, and I was asked, along with others, to sit on an advisory council to help structure this. Our research has shown that we think there's a great need and this can be a great success, and we think this is just going to add to what is already a wonderful opportunity in the community.
You talk about that, and it's true. When someone says, "Are you happy?" sometimes we have to stop and think about that, or what makes you happy. But in this case, as you mentioned, I think that's so appropriate. When someone says, "What have you always wanted to learn?" Suddenly you've got this, I think individuals who participate in lifelong learning are intellectually curious anyway, right? Now all of a sudden they find maybe that they have expendable income and they have something called time, which is a beautiful thing, where they can pursue some of these passions. So how are you finding when you go to the community or when you go to these members and you say, "What do you want to learn?" What do they say?
Well, we have interest cards that we pass out to members of a club or organization, and when we look at those interest cards, they come back and there's a range from political science to the fine arts to languages to finance. And so what we have is a committee called the Curriculum Committee that is now looking at this data and designing courses. And the course offerings will be designed on a semester basis, and will be offered on 2 semesters, a fall semester and spring semester, with the first semester being the spring, because our open house is during homecoming.
Okay.
So
okay.
what we're going to do is then offer members of the community who are intellectually curious an opportunity to have a look at us and see if they
Kinda
would like to
check you
do
out.
this, check us out.
Is this legit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into all the specifics and before this half hour is over, we are going to enlighten you on how you can find out more information, you know, what you can look forward to. But let's backtrack. Okay, so we talk about these societies for lifelong learning. There are 500 in the United States. We're now going to have one affiliated with WKU. Let's take a step back. How does something like this even begin, you know, to gain momentum? Cindy, you've been involved in this for a long time.
Yeah, it's not, you know, over the years, different people at Western have been interested in this, and it's just never been the right time for our community. But now, everything's coming together just perfectly, and I think you had Dana Bradley from the Gerontology Department and Barbara Johnston here on a previous show, and they were talking about the age-friendly city. And this just all ties in together beautifully because the time seems to be right. That, and we've got a great group of citizens, community members who got interested, and it was just the right group. Well, and it's happening.
Everything's about timing, but
Yeah.
for those of you that may not have been with us on that previous show that she's referencing, we're talking about Bowling Green having a designation as an age-friendly city, which, what does that mean? Well, what age are we talking about? You know, because we dance around this, well, seniors and age-friendly, but what are we talking about?
Well, let me tell you about our Society for Lifelong Learning is going to be anyone 50 and over.
50
so
and
that's
over.
that's who we'll be targeting. Retired or semi-retired, you know, most of the classes will end up being during daytime hours, although there'll be some in the evenings, mostly on weekdays during the day. So that's the audience. Just people who want to learn, and there's a social aspect to it as well, Barb. There's some social events. There'll likely be some travel, learn and travel trips. So it doesn't just have to be. It's never just a classroom, you know, lecture. It's not like that at all. But there's no test.
And there's no test.
No test.
Yay!
Yeah.
But getting back to the timing on these
Yeah.
kinds of things. So as you mentioned, there were many in the community who've wanted to do this for a long time, but maybe for different reasons it wasn't right. Suddenly, the perfect storm. Everything
Yes.
came together, right? But what does that perfect storm look like? Because you say most of these lifelong learning societies are affiliated with a university, but they don't have to be, right?
There are some that are affiliated with seniors communities, you know, residential communities, but for the most part they are supported, at least in part, by a university. But if you think about it, it's fertile ground. If you're in a university town where faculty have retired but want to stay engaged, you know, it gives them a chance to teach the topic that they were really passionate about, not necessarily what they, you know, had to teach. But also people who weren't teachers still like to learn about a topic and then share with the crowd, you know. Because it's member driven, they will teach each other. So we won't be hiring faculty. It's not that kind of a organization. This is people with a skill and a talent and an interest in sharing something will sign up to teach a particular class, and people that are interested will gravitate to that class, and so they all work together. Some people serve on committees, some people teach.
Now, let's take a closer look at WKU. So you took this to WKU and you said, do you want to be affiliated with it? Yes. What's the step? What's the next step? Organization.
Well, it had to be certainly fleshed out in terms of a concept, and that's what our advisory council has been doing over the spring and summer. When we felt that we had done our homework, and the homework was, how are we going to do this? Is there a market for it? And we got some professional help with some consultants who are involved with lifelong learning institutes, did some kind of demographic analysis of the community. Then that concept was presented to the president of Western Kentucky University, Dr. Ransdell, and the Board of Regents, and the approval was made to support this this effort. And it's again, it's a credit to the forward thinking of WKU, because this is another outreach into the community. One of the points that Cindy made, I think it really bears repeating. This is a member-driven organization. And what that means is that the members can shape the curriculum. The members can shape the direction, the things that they want to do. And so the more participation that we have, the more input we have, the better. And that way we can provide the kinds of experiences that are going to be most fun, and that's really important, yes, as well as relevant.
You know, you talk about member-driven. So this is lifelong learning. You don't have to sign up for a class necessarily. I guess I want to make the distinction that it's not like applying to a university to take classes.
That's right.
It's not going to be semester, well, it is semester-driven. There's a fall and a spring semester, but to the extent that it might be just a lunch class. Help me understand that.
Our terms will probably be about 8 weeks in length. Some classes may be a one-time lunch and learn, they call them, where you bring your lunch and you listen to someone talk about something, a topic that they know a lot about, and then you ask questions. Some of them are, like Great Decisions, will meet every week for 8 weeks, you know, for a set amount of time, and there's some reading and assignments like that, but they're basically all different times. They can
really vary.
Yes, in fact they can vary.
And be tailored to the individual schedules.
Right.
They can pick and choose as many classes as they sign up for, and as many as they're able to attend, or as few.
That's, you know, and again, I like the part where you don't have to take a test, which is really neat. We're going to tell you more about the course offerings, how you can find out more about WKU Society for Lifelong Learning when Kentucky Outlook continues. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back. Stay with us. Kentucky Outlook continues. I'm your host, Barbara Deeb. On the program today, we are talking about lifelong learning. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and, of course, at our website, WKYUPBS.org. So what if someone came to you and says, what is it that you've always wanted to study? What would you come up with? Well, that's exactly what's happening as the Society for Lifelong Learning gets underway at WKU. We welcome back to the program Dr. Frank Kirsting, in addition Dr. Cindy Ehresman and Ed Tivol, two of which are on the advisory committee for the SLL, as we're going to reference it, right, the Society for Lifelong Learning. So before the break, we were talking about what exactly this is. If someone would be so kind as to recap for our audience that might be just joining us, what is a Society for Lifelong Learning?
It's a member-driven organization, primarily for people 50 and over, retired or semi-retired, who are interested in staying intellectually stimulated, and there's some social interaction as well.
You know, like they say, never stop learning. They say that's one way to keep your brain fresh. So this is an exciting opportunity that's been presented to WKU, and it looks like it's happening. And you know, before the break, Cindy, you were referencing the fact that for years a lot of people have wanted a lifelong learning society, but maybe all the cards weren't there and things weren't right, but it appears that now the momentum is there, it's happening. So as we speak, it's happening. You're going to have an open house soon, huh?
We are. What we decided to do is to use homecoming as our venue.
WKU's
homecoming on November 8th and 9th.
Okay.
And the reason why is that when the alumni come back, this is an opportunity to tell them that Western still is inviting you to come back to campus. So if you're 50 and older, we have the program. If you're in your 20s or 30s, when it's your time, the program will be more mature.
That's a nice way to put it.
And it will be something that you can count on because, as you were saying before, this program is for the intellectually curious. And one thing that you do learn at a university is the importance of being intellectually curious. So we're going to have a display information booth during homecoming on the 8th at the Alumni Center. So the alumni can stop by and have a look at us there. And on the 9th, we're going to have our actual open house at the Nicely Center.
So is that where the Society for Lifelong Learning will be permanently housed, at the Nicely Center?
Yes. That's where it'll be there, and it'll be there for very practical reasons. Easy to park, good lighting when there's nighttime classes, and very conveniently located. The open house will offer an opportunity for people to not only register, but to sample some classes. So
oh, really?
they'll get the chance to actually have a sampling, a little smorgasbord of classes that they can see some of the ideas that we are kicking around for the initial offerings, which will start in early 2015.
So it's a member-driven opportunity, lifelong learning, and as you mentioned at the head of the show, there are 500 of these lifelong learning societies in the United States. Up until recently, now that Western's going to have one, it was at the University of Kentucky, at Vanderbilt and Nashville. Now Western's going to have one. So it's member-driven. What does that mean? So you should be 50 or older to become a member. How do I become a member? How does that work?
We have we're going to start out with 2 different levels of membership. You can be a member for just one term for $125, or you can be a member for the entire year for $200. There's a third option, which is really exciting because my Vice President of Extended Learning and Outreach has graciously offered to let us have the operating capital for this first year. And so if you want to be a founding member, you can pay $500. That's $300 for founding membership and $200 for your first year. But the entire $500 will go into the foundation for this first year. So that'll help us get established, get us a little.
And we'll also they'll also enable us to provide scholarships.
Yes.
Okay.
To individuals who want to participate in the Society for Lifelong Learning but are financially strapped, and so we'll be able to support them in terms of their involvement in the society, because that involvement is so important.
Well, and from talking with all of you prior to recording this show, there's a kind of a stereotype that goes with some of these kinds of programs. I'll just put it out there. And for seniors, that it might not be a very exciting or stimulating sort of opportunity. But that's not going to be the case from what I'm hearing from the three of you.
Absolutely not. The member-driven part of this flows through the entire, from starting with the registration up to the members' participation in the classes. The classes are meant to be interactive. They're meant to be stimulating. They're meant to elicit from those who are in the audience the experiences that may be relevant to those classes, because there are people who have lived through historical events or climactic events or financial events and can lend to the wealth of information, not just it was being presented by a very well-qualified instructor. So that's an important component, and it's good to bring that out. We're not talking about very dull classes. We're talking about exercising that brain that we have and keeping it very healthy.
Well, and statistics will back that up, right? Keep the brain active and it'll keep going.
One of the nice things too about this being a society, and emphasizing that in a name, is that we have parties.
So
we're
there's really method in the madness of calling it a society? Really?
And what's important for that is that, when you're working, you have your friends are basically,
your people you work with.
People you work with or go to church with. And here what you're seeing is a whole group of people who have the same intellectual interests that you do. So it's a way to find new friends as well, and to expand your network instead of decreasing it when you retire. Because one of the things that we found in the research, again, is that when you retire, you tend to lose that social base. They say, oh, let's get together for lunch once a week. And all of a sudden, So this way, you are engaged, and you can count on these courses to come together as a society and meet new friends and find opportunities to expand your horizons.
Will there be a cap on how many members in the Society for Lifelong Learning that you can find?
I don't think we'll put a cap on it. We'd like to get to, and ultimately, the university is supporting this, but we'd like to get it to a self-sustaining level.
Okay.
And around 300 members would probably get us there. I mean, that's our best guess. We did some market research and found that there's actually quite a few more people than 300.
Oh, you mean as far as in that cohort, in that age group of 50 plus?
Yeah, it was
You were surprised.
Oh yes, we were really surprised.
What are we looking at? How many?
about 3,000 in our demographic in this area. That's
Okay.
so. If we can get a couple hundred people interested, and then they'll bring their friends, and they'll bring their friends, and it'll go. We're committed to supporting it, you know, until it gets fully going. But
That would be neat. Okay, so we're talking about, when you said in our demographic, what are we looking at when you're talking about 3,000 people, 50 plus? Just in the Bowling Green, Warren County area, or is it bigger than that?
Well, we're looking outside the area. The survey we did was just to see if we had enough to create a market. So we expect there to be far more than the 3,000 that were in that initial survey. That was done on a very quick basis. But we're going to cover the entire south central Kentucky area, the areas, all the 10 counties that are normally in south central Kentucky. And we would welcome folks from outside who hear about it. Come to Bowling Green, come to Lifelong Learning, and have a good time.
Sounded like an invitation to a party. And actually, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the open house. And of course, at the end of the show, we'll have a website where you can go to get more information, and also a telephone number. So it's called the Society for Lifelong Learning, WKU Society for Lifelong Learning. And so as we speak, the society is just forming. The classes are not there yet. The classes will be available in the spring of 2015. But if you're watching this show, you're hearing this, and you're thinking, you know what, I fall into that cohort of age 50 or older, and I'd like to expand my knowledge. You can come to an open house during homecoming at WKU, November 8th and November 9th. So again, give us what that's going to look like.
The open house will be on the 9th at Nicely Center from 2 until 4. We will be offering refreshments and the opportunity for people to register and then to sample about 3 classes. And each of the classes are going to be probably around 20 minutes or so in length, and they'll rotate so that you can choose one, and then you'll get to see the other 2 as well. It will give people a chance to ask questions, and we hope that it will stimulate that interest. After that, we'll be reaching out to the community through this type of media and others, and following up, and in the probably March timeframe, we'll be kicking off, and we'll be ready to go.
And again, these are going to be classes, but you don't have to take a test. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to, no GPA. They're not going to be looking at that. This is totally something that you have always wanted to learn, maybe never had the opportunity, and again, member driven.
And fun.
Fun.
There's a saying, don't put into second place the fun experience, and that's what this should be. It's fun.
The Society for Lifelong Learning. And so give me, again, a kind of a sample of some of the classes that might be, because as you say, it's member driven, so you've already given out these surveys to your members or potential members to say, what do you want to learn? You know, what's that next step that you'd like to take part in? What are some of the things that came up?
one thing I thought of when Frank was talking about going to lunch with your former coworkers, but everybody has a network. Let's say that you want to get together, but instead you take a class for 8 weeks to learn introductory French because you're going to take a trip next year to France. You know, then you've got a mission to your networking and your socialization. So.
And then combine that with a class in French cooking.
Yes.
And French cuisine.
Yes.
And then French architecture, if that's what you want to do. Or translate that to Italian or Greek or any of the other computers and how to use them better, and technology and how to use it better, and how to protect yourself from the threats that we all face in the modern technological world.
Beautiful.
There is just an open-ended list of opportunities here: political science, history, geography, culture, religion, comparative religions. How many of us really know the difference between Sunni and Shia? And shouldn't we? So those are the opportunities we're talking about.
And there's going to be, as we speak now, like I said, some of you are on an advisory committee that's looking at this, but there's also a curriculum committee that will take this information, call this information, and then decide on what classes will be offered. How many classes will be offered each semester?
Of course, this is our startup phase.
Okay.
We're trying for about 12 maybe 15 different offerings in this spring semester.
So in spring of 2015, there should be probably 12 to 15 classes that will be available.
Yes.
Again, no test, this is lifelong learning.
Right.
And so at the end of the show, we'll put up some information as to where you can get more information, or they can attend this open house that you're having November 9th at the Nicely Center. What are the times on that?
2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We'll have desserts and coffee, lots of information. All of our advisory group will be there to greet, and then at 2:45 we'll start a round of sample classes.
Do we know yet what those classes are going to be? She wants to keep us in suspense.
I hate to say.
Okay. It's called the Society for Lifelong Learning. Frank, leave us with some words of wisdom. Encourage people to take a look at this.
My words of wisdom are this. When you enter the golden age, you want to make sure that age is truly golden. So you need physical health, you need fiscal health, emotional help, and also you need intellectual curiosity, because without that intellectual curiosity, the other three become very, very problematic. And so Western has answered the bell on this. And so because this need has been around for a while, but now we are alive. We truly are alive with making this a possibility. And the Society of Lifelong Learning is going to provide that linchpin that we need for the intellectually curious.
There you go. Those boomers are living longer. We've been talking with Dr. Frank Kirsting, Dr. Cindy Ehresman, and Ed Tivol about something called the Society for Lifelong Learning at WKU. And we're going to put up a phone number and an email address if you want to get more information. That's going to, thanks to all of you and success.
Thank you, Barbara.
That's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm Barbara D. Glad you joined us. That was a fast